This session will be concerned with the functions of the Human Resource Management section. The Human Resource Management function deals with the management and welfare of employees in their place of work. So this is the department that is primarily focused on the development, management, recruitment, welfare of the employees. The human resource function is essential for a good overall performance and growth. Businesses need people. Nothing happens on its own. Output must be produced, tasks must be completed, and to do this, people are required. So people are a resource of the business, an important resource of the business. And a department is needed to ensure that the people are being looked after, that their aspirations are being met, they feel secure in their employment, they feel safe, they're motivated. So the HRM function is an important one. The Human Resource Department should ensure that the working environment is safe and suitable for employees. It's imperative that the employees feel safe at work. They feel that the management are taking every step possible to ensure their safety. That could be guards on machines, or the physical environment in which they're working, the quality of the air, the lighting conditions, the noise levels. So as much as possible has been done to ensure that the employees feel safe in work. They must also ensure that the organizational goals are achieved through the efforts of the employees. The organization sets goals. The goals could be to grow by a certain percentage in the next year, or to innovate a product, or to market a new product in some area, or to achieve some strategic objective that's been set out. And the Human Resource Management section tries to get the workforce on board, to try to get the workforce to achieve those objectives, to work in a manner which will achieve the objectives. So it's the function of the HR section to motivate and look after the employees, but motivate them to achieve the goals of the organization. Human resource management responsibility. Well, it's their responsibility to recruit and to hire, to maintain, develop, and finally to manage the exit of the employees from the organization. So the organization recruits appropriate workers with particular skills and abilities. It goes through the hiring process, getting the workers into the job. And then it tries to maintain the workers by offering incentives and motivations and good morale, a good sense of community and involvement. And it develops the workers through training programs. And finally, it interviews them at the end to see what their experiences were and to see where improvements could be made. Now we'll mention these points again later, but these are essential functions of the HR section. They try to develop motivation through suitable rewards. The rewards may be monetary, there might be remuneration, but it could also be acknowledgement that the people are doing a good job, praise. It doesn't cost too much to praise someone, but people value it. They like to be recognized as having made a contribution. The HR department should also provide training opportunities, training opportunities for the employees. These could be in-house training programs, training related to the work, training in terms of the skills that are required specifically to do the tasks that are required of the employees. This could be looking after particular types of machinery, or efficiently using records in the stores, or using the computer system in the office, looking at new software, whatever it is. So there are training opportunities so that the employees feel that they are being developed. But it could also be looking for more generic skills and looking outside the organisation for courses being offered at local colleges, for example, to see if they are suitable for the employees also, and promoting these courses within the employee population of the business. It's important to maintain the morale of the business. People are people. People like to have a pleasant life. Pleasant in the sense that they enjoy what they're doing. Pleasant in the sense that they've got colleagues and friends, and they've made new friends, and they're motivated. They're spending a large part of their life making something. They want to work in an environment which is supportive and friendly. So the HR department should undertake whatever means it sees as desirable in promoting morale within the workplace. And of course, the HR section should look at monitoring government legislation and making sure government legislation has been implemented. This could be related to sex discrimination or race discrimination or health and safety issues at work. There are many parts to government legislation relating to business, and it's the function of the HR department to be up to date with these and to ensure adherence to them. Now, these are the essential roles of the HR department. They're very important because, as I said earlier, it's people who make the product. It's people who initiate the routines of the business. It's people who turn up every morning and commit parts of their lives to achieving the objectives of the business. So the role of the HR department is extremely important in the overall management of the business. Now, there is a more narrow role as well, which we often bump into, and it's worth talking about this. This is personnel management. As we'll see, personnel management is much more streamlined. It's much more focused on some aspects of employment than the HR department. HR is wider. Personnel management is narrow. It relates to people management within an organization. Personnel management aims to provide a framework for assisting and developing and maintaining the individual's employment. So personnel management is much more detailed. It's much more specific. The personnel management functions could be related to recruitment and selection, as was the HR. Development of good working environment, as was the HR. So there's a big overlap. Maintenance of good employee relations, similar to HR, again, a big overlap. And development of effective training courses. So we can see from these 4 points, A, B, C, and D, that there is a strong overlap with the idea of HRM. In fact, the two terms, the HR function and the personnel management function are sometimes used interchangeably. People see them as the same. But what we want to get across here in this session is that the HR function is wider. It looks at these 4 points, the ones we've got on the slide at the moment, A, B, C and D. And I want to put across that the personnel management section is much narrower. Now let's look at how that can be narrowed down. It tends to be more administrative and deals with items such as payroll and employment law. So I know we talked about the 4 areas in the previous slide, but really the personnel management function is focused in on payroll and employment law. It's responsible for managing a workforce as a primary resource that contributes to the success of the organisation. Now that's the HR. The HR resources are responsible for looking at the overall management of the workforce, whereas personnel we're putting forward as a much narrower function, looking at payroll and perhaps aspects of employment. So the HR function is described as much broader in scope than personnel management. It's much wider. A primary goal of human resources is to enable employees to work to the maximum level of efficiency. So the HR function is to encourage people to work to maximum efficiency, create motivation, create a good morale, create safety and look after the welfare of the workers and ensure that the tasks that they're given are achievable. Make sure that they are motivated, as I said earlier. So that's much wider. It's looking after the workforce in a way that will maximize their efficiency. As I said as well earlier, most people or most organizations seem to use the terms HRM and personnel management interchangeably, but we're seeing them as different. Let's talk about personnel management in a little more detail. It's traditional and routine administrative tasks, so it's much more routine. It's ensuring that the tasks that are necessary to be completed to have a workforce are completed. For example, payroll and issues surrounding the payment of the employees. It looks after holiday entitlement and pay scales and looks at the more traditional roles. So it looks at payroll and parts of employment law that are relevant. There's no doubt that employee motivation is partially dependent on rewards, such as pay and bonuses and compensation packages. So that's important. The HR role, as I said, was much wider. HR would look at motivation and communications with the workers and dealing with issues such as safety and the environment in which the workers are employed and training schemes and so on, development issues. So the HR people are looking at motivation in a wider context. And sometimes people are just simply motivated by being praised. We like to be recognized for what we've done well. So it's not necessarily all about money. Now, the HR function, manage the whole workforce. So that's the first point. Develops and trains employees in order to enhance efficiency and meet the organizational goals. So the HR manages the employees and develops the employees to meet the organizational goals. It has a continuous improvement plan, constantly trying to improve the workforce and constantly trying to improve the conditions of employment so that there's greater retention of the workforce. People like working for the company there's better communications, and morale is quite high. The HR function is an integral part of the organization. It's a very important function within the organization. It's necessary to have a good and well-motivated workforce if the company is going to succeed. So motivation is dependent on work groups, career opportunities, job satisfaction, and job creativity, people's opinions about the job and their ideas for improving the way the work runs. These are important and should be taken on board. So now we've got a distinction that we need to be clear about. One is the HR function, which is wider. It involves all the range of activities that develop the workforce, ensure the continuity of the workforce and the efficiency of the workforce, motivate the workforce, and develop them with courses and so on. And the personnel function, which deals with specific functions such as perhaps the payroll, holiday entitlement and sickness and that sort of thing, absenteeism. And also we'll look at legislation to ensure that the legislation is being implemented. What was intended in terms of legislation from the government is being implemented fully within the organisation, and that its practices and policies meet the requirements of the law. Now, human resources function. Well, human resource management is responsible for the acquisition, development and training of staff, acquiring the staff, acquiring them within the labour market, finding the staff, seeking them out, developing and training the staff. It looks at rewards to facilitate motivation. It looks at pay scales and overall remuneration, and looks at bonuses and looks at ways of motivating the workforce. It recruits people to the workforce and also looks at their exit from the organisation. It interviews them at the end to find out what their experiences were and what went right and what went wrong and what could be improved upon, and making sure that issues are properly closed off. Now, job analysis. Well, establishing a job requirement is a part of the HR function. It's finding out what the job will entail, the tasks, the responsibilities, the skills, the experiences and the qualifications that are necessary to meet the job requirements. So it's the HR function to itemize what is required. So, development of a job description. It's finding out what the job will entail and what are the required attributes of the worker, the employee, and then developing a job description, which quite simply, as I said, describes the job. And looking at a person's specification, the personal characteristics suitable for the job description. What sort of person should attempt to do that job? What characteristics should the person have? What experiences should they have, and what qualifications or what skill sets should they have? So looking at the person specification. And looking at the attraction of working in the organisation and the job satisfaction that the work will give. It's important that the HR section knows what the job is, knows what the attractions of the job is, what sort of person would be best suited to this job, so that people reading a job description, people who are looking for a job, read the job description, will know whether they should apply or not, know whether that particular job will attract them or not. So it's the function of the HR section to do a job analysis, to make sure that everyone's clear about what jobs entail, the job description, and also the characteristics that are best suited to take on that particular job. So we've got the HRM function and we've got personnel management. Terms tend to be used interchangeably, so we will meet them interchangeably in the course of our studies. But this class tries to make some distinction between the two by looking at the HRM function as being much broader than the personnel function. The personnel function looking at very specific issues such as payroll, sickness, holiday entitlement, conditions of work, hours of work perhaps, much more delineated issues, and making sure that legislation is properly implemented. Whereas the HR function deals with development, recruitment, retention, motivation, morale, and so on. That's all I'm going to do in this session. I'm going to leave it at that and say thank you for watching.